This week, we're looking at a very particular fire and air circuitry. Neptune at 0 degrees Aries, sextile Mars at around 3 degrees Aquarius, conjunct Pluto. Then we bring in Saturn entering Aries on the 14th of February and the exact Saturn-Neptune conjunction around 0 degrees 44 minutes Aries on the 20th of February. So we've got a spiritual spark and a collective amplifier. And then Saturn arriving like a vow. We're doing this clean. We're doing this with maturity and wisdom. We're doing this without illusion and rooted on firm foundations in reality. And I want to anchor this in everyday life. So we're going to walk through 5 key themes. And for each one, I'll give you a clear example of how this can look in the real world, on an individual and collective level. Welcome to Soul Symbols Weekly Astrology. My name is Karen, and thank you for joining us. So first of all, let's have a look at the sky. This week, the big story is Neptune moving into Aries. And the ruler Aries is Mars, and that's currently sitting up here in Aquarius, conjunct Pluto at 3 degrees. So we've got this ruler of Aries in a sextile to Neptune. So it's driving the archetypal landscape of Neptune in Aries. So we have the Aquarian air and we have the Aries fire. And fire and air is combustion, with Aries as that initiator of fire. So the dreams, visions, imaginations that were being formulated in Pisces while Neptune was there now become ignited into forward movement. And what we felt is emotional will become inspired action, or has the possibility to become inspired action. At 0 degrees of Aries, it can feel public facing too. Not just residing in our imaginations, but concretizing in the real world. Whatever vision is gestating in the collective now is looking for a name, a banner, and a beginning. So this Mars-Pluto here in Aquarius is strategic willpower, and it's inside systems, networks, movements, and technology. Being Aquarius here, add Neptune sextile and you get a clean channel between the fire of initiation and the air, which is the ideas, groups, and circulations. That sextile is harmonious. It's of the nature of Venus, so it's very bonding in that way. So it's vision, finding a method to manifest, and our ideals, or the ideals, collective ideals, finding an organizing principle here. And this is all happening in the wider context of Saturn joining Neptune in Aries and sextiling Pluto on the 20th of February. That's when it's exact. Here we go. Which will give the transit a healthy dose of wisdom, and it will require us to build deep, solid foundations. So those inspiring visions can manifest in reality and have that longevity. It's not just that flash of inspiration and the fire goes out. And there's an incredible importance and potential in this present moment. This conjunction is at 0 degrees of the whole zodiac, so it's truly a seeding moment, and this will play out over generations. If we look here, Saturn will not meet Neptune again for another 30 years. Here we are, and that will be in June of 2061, and Neptune will be in Gemini, and Pluto will be squaring Neptune from Pisces. So what we're seeding here at 0 degrees of Aries will become a point of tension and subsequent metamorphosis into a new expression, a bit like our first quarter moon. So there's that tension. But what we build now and what's manifested into our collective reality can become the tension of crisis or a creative tension. And we're being invited right now to choose a trajectory that encompasses the highest expression of our collective potential. So let's talk really briefly about the element of air and fire. So fire initiates. It's the energy of beginning, of moving, claiming space. Fire always claims space. Nobody sits where right in the middle of the fire. And it's also about choosing. So the fire is desire, courage, it's life force and can be passionate vision. Air circulates, if we think of the element of air, and it's that energy of connection, of thinking, communication, and networking. The air is ideas, communities, systems, and that invisible web between people. It's their Indra's web, or it can be the shamanic web, but it's that invisible web. Excuse me. Fire and air are inspiration plus distribution. So it can build movements and launch projects. It can also spread ideas quickly. But fire and air also need grounding because, if you don't contain a fire, it can go out or burn down. And you can also get overheating, burnout, that impulsivity that often comes with Aries, nervous system overdrive, so much energy, our nervous systems go into overdrive, and getting lost in group dynamics or spinning out mentally. So we'll have a look at the themes. The first thing we've got is inspired action rather than emotional action or reaction. So Aries fire brings ignition, and Aquarius air is bringing that objectivity and scale. This is scale. So the impulse pulse is less about I feel, therefore I do, and more about I see the future, therefore we build, and it's a building together. We're talking about Aquarius, that is building together. So it's great for launching business, movements, anything new, really. Also, prototyping. We may see innovation bud here that will later become something of scale within society. It's also good for joining forces and organising communities, and this is where we can look at and bring individual abilities together into one place and become highly effective and impactful in making a concept real. Before Saturn arrives in Aries, we have that rush of faith and that urgency. This is the future. Let's go. That's very Mars, that speed. Let's go. Let's do it. But once Saturn arrives, the same impulse gets tested for motive, durability, and the consequences of that action. So the fire is still there, but now it's got that spine. Uh, Saturn can be about the bones, the skeletons, the foundations. So it's got a spine now. So in its best form, it's courage without ego and leadership as service. But with shadow, and there's always shadow with planets, it can feel like the flame going out. So we can experience paralysis or a sense of being demoralized. There can be fear occur here, and that I can't do this thinking, I can't, or just a sheer exhaustion that makes you drop your mission, your vision, your quest. Then we have myth and movement. So by this, I mean that Neptune in Aries can mythologize the archetypal qualities such as courage, identity, leadership, but it can also mythologize conflict. It's the hallmark of a spiritual warrior, and Mars, Pluto in Aquarius can mobilize people quickly. So together, they can be the birth of compelling narratives that rally groups together. That's beautiful when it's liberating, but it's dangerous when it becomes a crusade or a test of the purity. You're not pure enough to be in this group, or those who are not pure. Something bad can happen, or a seductive ideology. So that ideology that is attractive and alluring, often leading individuals to adopt it without critical thinking and examination. Neptune, Mars, Pluto can birth a compelling story that galvanizes a group very quickly. and then air spread it and fire ignites it. But Saturn's ingress will look for proof. So prove it now. What are the rules? What are the boundaries? Who's getting protected? So this is where spiritual resolve shows up as solid ethics, clear roles and boundaries. So it's real world delivery to the people who need it. And of course, we've got to look at the shadow. The shadow is where this can turn into a pressure cooker ideology, or that unexamined seductive ideology takes over. And there can be nasty backstabbing inside groups, or entanglements where nobody is naming the power dynamics. The next thing that we have is soft power feeding hard power. So Mars Pluto is intensity, leverage, pressure. It can be that surgical decisiveness, decision that slices through everything. Neptune is the glamour, it's faith and transcendence. So that longing for melting back into the bliss of oneness, it can have that energetic about it. But it's also that fog of confusion and delusion. So in sextile, Neptune can spiritualize the Mars-Pluto drive. So it's a sense of, instead of something we're doing, a project we're launching, it's a mission, a spiritual quest, a cause, a calling. It's more than just working or doing whatever we're doing. So the gift of this is a sense of impassioned purpose. The risk, real risk, is justification. The ends are holy. My end aim is holy. That's my mission. So the means don't matter. So this can be seen as a rise of cults, of religious fanaticism, and it's that area of holy wars. Once Saturn joins Neptune, the soft power feeding the hard power becomes discernment around influence. Mars Pluto being that leverage, intensity and strategy, so having the discernment around that. Neptune, that charisma and enchantment and ideal, saviourhood or personal gain, dressed up as virtue, moral goodness. The best expression is acting clearly, quietly, effectively, and having that keen awareness of the consequences of the actions. The shadow expression can be a paranoia, and that can be individual or group. A spiral was suspicion, that feeling something's awful, she's not right, and it spirals out of control. Or involvement in covert mess because the group isn't strong enough for the intensity of what is happening. And then we have this beautiful air, fire creativity. So we can look at it as the lightning in the mind, that inspiration and the fuel in the gut to move forward it, that, the will, the fuel in the gut. So it's a prime transit, this, for visionary writing, filmmaking, branding, music. And the creativity can be utilized for ritual and magical work also. It can fuel passionate activism for a cause and future tech aesthetics. So if you're not sure about what future tech aesthetics are, I just came across it while I was researching. It's the visual and emotional expression of technology's potential and impact on society. It encompasses various movements and trends such as, I love this one, it is so Aquarian, it's called retrofuturism. So that, I say it's Aquarian because it's blending past styles with futuristic technology and future aesthetics. And it explores how design can reflect and negotiate themes from the present and future. So it's very Aquarian that way. These aesthetics often highlight the tension between historical perspectives and future possibilities. So it emphasizes the role of technology in shaping our perceptions and interactions with the world. So it's that look back and look forward. It's not throwing the baby out with the bathwater. Retro futurism. That's something new for your book. So fire is sparking the original, and the air is distributing it here. You'll often see it as in a surge of symbols, memes, movements, and tech-enabled mysticism. That kind of blending. And with Saturn's arrival in February into Aries, lightning creativity becomes a buildable architecture. Fire and air is brilliant for prototyping. Inspiration as fire plus networks, ideas, and tech, the air. When Saturn arrives, you can stabilize it. So you can add the timelines. You can add training where it's needed, codes of practice, safeguarding, accountability, and that long-term scaffolding that holds your project up or the movement up. So it's where concrete surface becomes a real structure rather than a sentiment. The shadow of this, however, is burnout from trying to carry it all, or the collapse of confidence when the vision or the project hits that first real world constraint. If you interpret it as failure, you can burn out. So overall, apart from the Saturnian shadows or the shadows I've spoken about already, the shadow expressions to watch, yeah, we'll have a look at that. So Neptune, Mars, and Pluto can also look like disinformation that spreads fast. And we already see the fog Neptune brings with the deep fake AI. It's becoming more and more difficult to assess, what is real and what is fake. And there's a danger that in the future, our hold on reality gets weaker. And we also have that prospect with this of real information being classified as deep fake. And if you take that into your mind and think about it, that has all sorts of implications. We may see an increase of leaders whose charisma obscures darker motives. I expect you can name several leaders. You can see that in already, but that's going to intensify. Okay, algorithmic enchantment. There's another, as well as the other one I gave you. You've got algorithm enchantment. So this is AI, that use of deep learning techniques, and it identifies patterns in huge data sets, and it's often described as having enchanted determinism. So that's where the algorithms mechanisms are often unexplainable. So it leads to discussion and ideas and discourse around AI's magical properties. But there's also this shadow of escapism through tech, already very apparent. We have problems with tech addiction, scrolling addiction, all of that. But it probably will increase. We need to be aware of it, particularly if we've got teenage children, or we might want to keep a good eye on that. So, yeah, we need to watch as well for boundary loss in group dynamics, where that royal we becomes more important than truth, maintaining the sense of group, truth going out the window to maintain that. The sextile does make it easier to collaborate, so that's why discernment really matters here. So in this way, mutual activation becomes mutual responsibility, because Saturn arriving in Aries, there's a mutual reception. Aries is Mars ruled and Aquarius is Saturn ruled. So Mars in Aquarius, that will be there till the 2nd of March, and Saturn in Aries tend to work like a feedback loop between the will, the fire, and the systems, the air. When it's healthy, it's brave leadership inside community with that integrity and being aware of consequence. But when it's not, it's the worst of both. The will can get hijacked by group dynamics, group politics, office politics, turning into fear, rigidity, and depletion. So to summarize it, if you can summarize all that, an image I have is of someone fanning a fire. Okay, so that takes a bit of technical skill. You don't want to set your fan on fire and you don't want to fan it so much you kill the spark. Okay, so that's the image that sort of we're trying to harmonize the air and the fire, the fanning of the fire to keep it at a level we want. So Neptune moving into Aries is that spark, the new desire, that first fragile act of becoming, whether it's you in a new way or your project or your business. Mars conjunct Pluto in Aquarius is the voltage in the collective field. It's that strategic wheel that can turn inspiration into impact. We are individuals within a collective. So this is very much about our individual will remaining individual but fueling a collective fire. Okay. And Saturn approaching Neptune in Aries, we can look at like a vow, not just to begin, but to build. So we're not just feeling the vision, we're giving the vision a spine or the project a spine. We're putting in a timeline and a code of ethics and a life that can actually sustain it. This is a threshold transit. It can feel really exhilarating, like the future is suddenly within reach. And it can also feel confronting because we can't carry something new, a new project, a new business, a new era with old coping strategies. The question isn't how big can I make this, the scale of it. It's how true can I make this? How clean are my motives and what are the consequences? Everything you can think of this project, of these actions. Who is it protecting and who is it serving? So if you take one thing from this week, choose one inspired action that you can stand behind, even if nobody is watching and applauding you on, and choose a boundary that protects your energy so that your mission or quest doesn't consume you. Fire without a container burns out. Air without discernment spreads fog. But when air and fire are guided by Saturn's maturity and wisdom, they become something rare. A living vision made real that can last. That's what I have for you, everyone. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.